what I'm staring at right here is by far the biggest single project that I've taken on to date, real estate wise at least. So as you guys saw by the title and thumbnail, I'm sure, building a chassis table for the Charger here. This is by far the right way to go about it, especially where I want this car to be and what I want to build it to be. So that's kind of what led me to this decision here, especially seeing that this concrete floor in here is not level whatsoever. There's certain spots of it that are level, but having something like this to get the entire car square and set on will by far be the way to go. All this material here is 4x4 1/8" wall square stock. Mild steel, nothing too crazy. Obviously these rails on the side here are going to be the side pieces. These are 17 feet long a piece. I might trim them down to maybe 15 or 16. I'm not totally sure. But the place that I ordered this metal through, I had them square cut everything perfectly. It was not too much extra to have them do all that. That way I'm not here with a cutoff trying to cut everything. One, it saves me time, which I wasn't too worried about. But number two, it ensures that everything is square and the same length all the way across. These pieces here are going to be the legs, which eventually go on the bottom side of the table right here. These are 1.5 feet tall, and then these are going to be the center braces, which are 55 inches long all the way across. So plan going forward is basically just make a giant rectangle, and then I'll have 3 braces in the middle. These legs will be on the bottom, and then once I get all the materials for the casters, and then I'm going to have adjustable jacks on the side of each leg right there in order to level out this table here. Here's a quick rundown of exactly the plans going forward here. So you can see that's the shape, pretty simple. We're gonna have this outside perimeter, then we're gonna have these 3 braces in the middle. Like I mentioned, the first brace is gonna go underneath the front suspension, the rear brace is gonna go underneath the rear end, and then the center one will end up somewhere kind of in the middle. I'll probably end up putting it in the middle of the table, which will end up under the transmission hopefully. So that'll be some bracing for that, because eventually what I want to do is once I get the body mounted on here, then I'll mount the rear end with some plates to the table, mount the front suspension with some plates to the table, mount the rails to the table, and then I can go through and build the rest of the chassis, the cage, and the suspension around that. Just some quick measurements. The pinch welds on the Charger are 57 inches across. Obviously we got a 4-inch plate that's going to be sitting on, which is this essentially, and we'll have 1 inch of this sitting underneath the rocker, and then 3 inches off to the side, so then it can slide a 2-inch wide spacer in between the rocker and the table, and that's how this body of the car will mount to the table itself. All these pieces are now tacked together. As you can see, everything is square. I had to go through a couple times once again, and I don't know, kind of, put some pressure on some pieces, make sure everything was square. got it all leveled out right there, so I'm very happy with the way this is turning out so far. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just leave everything tacked together for now until I get the legs on, and then once I get the legs welded on and the adjusters for the legs welded on the side of those, I'll go through, flip the table over, level it all out on the ground, and then once that's good, I think I'll weld it when everything is actually leveled that way. I saw another guy do that in a video. I think that's going to be the best way to go about it. So now tomorrow I will start working on the legs. I got my whole process for the adjuster screws on the side designed up. I just got to go buy the material. And then once the casters get here, we'll officially weld the legs on. But so far, so good. Just take some time, take some patience, and yeah, still a lot of work ahead. I think I got my plan for the adjustable side casters or legs, I guess if you want to call them that, all figured out here. So this is kind of the quick math on what we're looking like. What I really wanted to do was have these thread rods on the side here along with casters, because if it was just sitting on the casters, one, it would move around. Two, like I mentioned earlier, no concrete floor is ever level. So with these raising up and down, I can then level out the table to my liking. Step one on this was figuring out what size thread rod I wanted to use. This is just 1-inch diameter thread rod, biggest I had at Menards. I mean, it'll work. I think that is going to be plenty strong to lift this table here. And then I just got 2 threaded nuts right here as well that will be welded onto the side leg itself. So I got all that measured out where that's gonna be. This is a quick eyeball of what the spacing is. I'll have to actually dial it in before I go through and weld everything, but it'll look something like that. Debating on if I wanna add a brace off to the side right here or off any side. We'll kind of see what it looks like once it is, or these are welded to the leg on the side here. And then the casters are just some basic 4-inch casters. I think each of these can lift like 800 or 900 pounds a piece. So between 6 of those, I mean, whatever the math equals out to, should be plenty strong here. Each one will also be rotating, which is nice. And then this, as you can see, just hangs over the edge just a touch there. So I'll go ahead, toss some beads on each side of those, follow my measurements here, get everything dialed, and I got 6 of these to make now. One final thing I forgot to mention really quick is I don't want just this thread rod sticking onto the ground. So once these are done, I'll go through and take some tubing here. I'll cut this down to whatever height I want at the end, and then I'll put maybe an 1/8 or 1/4-inch plate on the bottom side of this. And I can't weld it to this because if I had to weld it, this would hang off the side. You wouldn't be able to turn the casters. So once I get this down in the designated spot and it starts to lift the table up, well, then I can just go through, slide the plate on the bottom, and then obviously turn this a little bit more down, and that'll push down on that. Which reminds me, another thing I forgot to mention is on the top of this, in order to turn it, I'll have these nuts here welded to the top like so. I think these are, I forget what size these are, but I'll weld those to the top. That'll be flat right there. That way I could just toss a ratchet on and turn these up or down there. feel like I got a whole production line going on here building these legs. I just wrapped up welding the nuts on, what was this, 4 of the legs. I gotta go grab the right side one, so I grabbed the smaller one on accident for this guy. But once that is done, I can weld that onto there, put the bottom one on. The big thing is just going through, double, triple checking measurements, making sure everything is lined up, making sure I can spin the thread rod adjuster by hand, as you're not lining up, not going to cross thread, make sure everything is square, and obviously, level this way. It's not going to be crooked on the angle. So taking my time getting that all dialed. I got one here completely wrapped up and painted even. You can see I added these plates on the side, these bracing plates, and that was definitely to take it. So I'm very happy with the way that guy turned out. They're just 8-inch plates on the side. I got to go cut them all out for these legs here, and which officially means got 1 down and now 5 to go. I know I said I wasn't going to weld this up fully until I got it on the legs and got everything level, but I decided this was just going to be 10 times easier to go this route, so I went through, welded up every side there. I think it turned out pretty good, so it was a ton of work. I am happy with it though. You see these look pretty decent there, so I really wish I could have welded this all with 035 wire, but that thing only goes to 025, so it is what it is. It looked pretty good. I'll take it. And then I got the legs all wrapped up here, so you can see all 6. I got them all painted. So the final step here is to take these guys and stick them on this. There we go, get all the triangle bracing welded in. It was a lot of work measuring that all out, getting it all prepped, welding everything in place. I'm very happy with the way that these here turned out, so look pretty good. That is super strong now. It's pretty strong originally, but now I'm feeling a lot better about it, so that is not going nowhere. Now that those are done, I got to tape those off, prime and paint all the bare metal sections. I don't want it to rust. I'm just going to do the same thing I did for the bottom of the casters there. We'll just do that in satin black. I think that'll look pretty good. Then I got to flip the table over. That's going to be a process in itself. And then DA the top sections where I welded the cross braces to the outer frame. And then this thing will officially be done. Wrapped up the last 2 things needed for the chassis table here. One being priming and painting all the bare metal spots, all the joints where it was all welded up. That was a process in itself, measuring everything out to get each spot painted. And then painting and all was kind of a mess, but I got it done. And then the second thing was making these little like hockey puck looking things for the thread rod to sit on when they get screwed down, just so the thread rod isn't sitting on the concrete. But with that being said, this thing here is officially complete, and man, it is cool to see that all done and all together after, I don't know, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks worth of work. I don't even know how many hours into this. But yeah, that looks pretty sweet here. I'm very happy with this all. You can see the thread rod and those little hockey puck things I was telling you guys about. I ended up just going with some 1/8-inch plate, just what I had laying around, with some 1/8-inch wall tubing, and then I got it welded along the inside just so it looks cleaner. You can see these are free floating right there. I'll toss in a clip of me actually raising and lowering this thing, but it works pretty simple, as you can see. Once I get the table moved, in a spot I'll need to move it, I'll have to move the casters so they're all in a line in order for me to slide that little plate under there, like you can see. But everything goes up and down relatively smoothly, so couldn't be happier with that. As you can see, All these are painted now. The bottoms were painted originally, obviously from when I did the casters, and then I went through, taped everything off here. So it goes 2 inches out from the side on each one, and then goes 3 inches forward. And then on those, it goes 5 inches down right there. So as you can imagine, that was a lot of measuring, drawing, and then taping and masking all this off. This is already starting to get scratched up. It'll probably rub off eventually, but at least right now it's preventative. It's gonna be tricky space-wise once the car is actually in here on the table. I mean, this thing alone takes up a lot of space, and the car is obviously wider than this. So, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I don't think it'll be a huge issue. One thing I was worried about at the beginning, but am actually thankful I did it this way and happy about how it turned out, is the height of this. I thought it was gonna be too tall originally, because if you have it too tall, it's going to be hard, you know, to lift stuff on top of. But the nice thing about it being taller is there's plenty of space to crawl under there and work from multiple angles if something's got to be done on the bottom side of the car, which is nice. You can, you know, drag tools under there, which is good. And plus, having these open spaces in between the braces is going to be easier for that as well. That is going to do it for the chassis table video here. I hope you guys enjoyed that, or at least found it somewhat useful. If you're looking to make one of these, I watched a ton of videos gathering information from a whole bunch of different people in order to put together a game plan and some ideas for this. So this is what worked for me. Might not work for everyone. This is kind of the budget friendly version of how to build one. Unfortunately, either way you look at it, it's not going to be necessarily cheap, just because obviously the metal is so expensive. But everything else I feel like you can do for a pretty decent price, especially if you're doing the work all by yourself. And I think in the end, this cost me about a third, a little less than a third of what it would have cost to buy like a Unipro or Unijig Pro chassis table. So obviously this one doesn't have the gadgets and all the, you know, threaded holes and all that fancy stuff, but it'll work for what I'm doing, and I'm excited to get the car on here. Appreciate everyone watching though. I'm sorry it's been a week or two since I got the last video out, but this project obviously took quite a bit of time. So next video, we'll be getting the car on this thing and start mocking up some of the bigger pieces.